Over the years, ammunition has evolved in some wild ways, with engineers constantly cooking up rounds that are stronger, faster, and in some cases, downright terrifying. Whether it's for military, law enforcement, or civilian use, some types of ammo are so intense they deserve their own action movie. Here are 15 of the most intimidating rounds ever developed. Hollow point bullets. Hollow point bullets don't just hit their target, they make sure the target stays down. With a cavity at the tip, these bullets expand upon impact, creating massive wound channels. That's bad news for anything on the receiving end. The upside? They reduce the risk of overpenetration, which means less chance of collateral damage. That's why cops and self-defense users love them. The downside? They're so effective that international warfare treaties ban them. When a bullet is too nasty for war, you know it means business. Armor-piercing rounds. Regular bullets bounce off armor. These don't. With cores made from materials like tungsten or depleted uranium, armor-piercing rounds punch through protective gear like a hot knife through butter. If you've got a tank, an armored truck, or just really bad luck, you don't in the path of one of these. Due to their sheer penetrating power, they're heavily restricted in civilian use. In other words, don't expect to pick up a box of these at your local sporting goods store. Dragon's breath rounds. What's better than a shotgun blast? A shotgun blast that shoots fire. That's exactly what Dragon's breath rounds do, spitting flames up to 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. They look amazing at night, making them great for intimidation, but they're not exactly the safest option unless your goal is to start a forest fire. Because of that whole turning everything into an inferno problem, they're banned in a lot of places. But if you ever wanted to breathe fire like a dragon, this is probably the closest you'll get. Flechette rounds. Bullets are one thing, but what if your shotgun fired tiny steel darts instead? That's the idea behind flechette rounds. Originally used in World War I, these dart-filled shells were meant to rain down on enemy troops from above. Later, the U.S. military tried them in Vietnam with beehive rounds, artillery shells packed with thousands of flechettes. The result? A whole lot of puncture wounds. The problem is, they don't always stop a target immediately, making their effectiveness questionable. Still, they look terrifying on paper, which is half the battle in psychological warfare. These are just a few of the most intimidating rounds ever designed, but they barely scratch the surface. Ammo designers keep pushing the limits, proving that sometimes the bullet is just as scary as the gun that fires it. Whether it's about stopping power, penetration, or pure spectacle, these rounds have left their mark, literally. Explosive rounds. Explosive rounds do exactly what they sound like. They explode. That's bad news for anything they hit. Unlike regular bullets that rely on pure speed and impact, these have a tiny explosive charge inside. Once they make contact, boom, extra destruction. They're mostly used in anti-material rifles to take out vehicles, equipment, or anything else that doesn't appreciate a surprise detonation. Want to stop an engine block? This is your guy. But, and it's a big but, these rounds aren't meant for people. That's not just because they're overkill, but also because international law frowns upon turning enemy combatants into fireworks. The Hague Convention of 1899 put a stop to that idea. That said, as long as you're not aiming at people, explosive rounds remain a nasty tool for making sure enemy gear stays broken for good. Fragmentation rounds. Unlike explosive rounds that go off in one big bang, fragmentation rounds play dirty by falling apart. When they hit, they split into multiple high-speed fragments, increasing the chances of hitting something vital. If a regular bullet is a punch, a fragmentation round is a handful of gravel thrown at full speed, except every piece is sharp and moving like a bat out of hell. These rounds are mainly used against people, making them particularly nasty in combat. The more pieces flying around, the more injuries they cause. That's great if you're on the sending end, not so much if you're on the receiving end. But like anything that sounds too effective, there's controversy. The widespread dispersal of fragments means unintended targets can get caught in the mess, which makes lawyers and international watchdogs very unhappy. Still, if the goal is to maximize damage inside soft targets, Fragmentation rounds do the job very well. Depleted uranium rounds. Lead bullets? Cute, but depleted uranium rounds? Now we're talking. These rounds are so dense, they make regular bullets feel like styrofoam. Since uranium-238 is 1.7 times denser than lead, these projectiles smash through armored vehicles like a sledgehammer through drywall. But that's not even the best part. DU rounds also have a pyrophoric effect, meaning they ignite on impact. That's right, they don't just hit hard, they hit hot. Of course, there's always a catch. DU rounds leave behind radioactive dust, which is bad for anyone who breathes it in. Long-term health concerns? Check. Environmental concerns? Absolutely. But when the mission is to break through thick armor, few things do the job better. Despite the controversy, DU rounds remain in military arsenals because they work. And when you're staring down an armored target, effectiveness matters. Black Talon bullets. In the 1990s, Winchester introduced Black Talon bullets, and the world freaked out. These hollow point rounds didn't just expand, they turned into jagged little blades inside the target. If regular hollow points were considered deadly, Black Talons were next level. Medical professionals hated them because they were dangerous to remove from gunshot victims, and the media painted them as bullets designed to shred people from the inside out. The outcry was so loud that Winchester pulled them from the civilian market in 1993. But did that stop similar designs from popping up under different names? Not at all. The Black Talon branding might be gone, but bullets with the same performance are still around. If a bullet is good at stopping threats, people will find a way to keep using it. Marketing just has to get more creative. Glazer safety slugs. If a bullet could be polite, it would be a Glazer safety slug. Unlike standard rounds that barrel straight through a target, these break apart on impact, minimizing overpenetration. Each round is packed with compressed birdshot or lead pellets in a thin jacket, and when it hits something, it bursts open like a piñata, except instead of candy, it's sending tiny projectiles in all directions. This makes Glazer rounds great for self-defense, especially in places where hitting unintended targets is a concern. They deliver enough damage to stop a threat, but won't punch through walls and hit someone 3 rooms over. The trade-off? If the bad guy is wearing heavy clothing or hiding behind cover, these rounds might not have enough penetration to get the job done. Still, for their intended use, they strike a balance between stopping power and safety. Raufoss Mk211. The Raufoss Mk211 is not your average .50 caliber round. This thing is a triple threat: armor-piercing, explosive, and incendiary. You don't just shoot at a target with it, you introduce it to its worst nightmare. Designed to take out armored vehicles and aircraft, it's one of the deadliest rounds in modern arsenals. The secret sauce? A tungsten core, a slow-burning explosive, and an incendiary component all packed into one projectile. Fire it at a lightly armored vehicle, and it punches through the shell before setting everything inside on fire. Even better, if you hit an aircraft just right, the fuel can ignite, turning the whole thing into a fireball. At 1,000 meters, it can go through 11 millimeters of armor at a 45-degree angle. That's bad news for anything trying to hide behind thin metal. What makes the Mk211 extra special is its pyrotechnic ignition train. No need for a mechanical fuse, this round figures out how to explode all on its own. The result? A signature fragmentation pattern that sends large, deadly pieces flying in a 30-degree cone behind a target. If you see a green and white tip on a .50 caliber round, you're looking at one of these beasts. Used in Barrett sniper rifles and M2 Browning machine guns, it's expensive, but worth every penny when you need serious firepower. And speaking of serious firepower, let's talk about dum-dum bullets. Sounds cute, but they were so nasty they got banned. Developed in India in the late 1800s, these .303 rounds had exposed lead tips that expanded upon impact, making them incredibly effective at stopping enemies. Too effective, in fact. The wounds were so horrific that the Hague Convention of 1899 decided they were inhumane. Despite the ban, their legacy lives on in modern hollow points, which are still used by law enforcement and hunters who need reliable stopping power without overpenetration. Then we have HEIAP rounds, high explosive incendiary armor piercing. These are for when you want to pierce armor, blow something up, and set it on fire all in one shot. Typically used in calibers ranging from 12.7mm to 30mm, they work by punching through armor, letting the explosive charge get inside, and then setting everything ablaze. Great for armored vehicles, aircraft, and fortified positions. Expensive and complex, but if you're carrying HEIAP rounds, you're probably not worried about your ammo budget. Tracer rounds might not have the same level of destruction, but they serve a critical role. Loaded every fifth round in machine gun belts, they leave a glowing trail that lets shooters see where their bullets are going. Useful for correcting aim and signaling, but also a double-edged sword. If you can see your bullets, so can the enemy. Also, they can set things on fire, which is great in a war zone, but terrible if you're shooting near dry brush. Now for the oddball, bolo rounds. These Frankenstein bullets consist of 2 or more projectiles connected by a wire. The idea is that they spread apart in flight, creating a slicing effect. Sounds good in theory, but in practice, they're wildly unpredictable. The wire might not deploy correctly, or it could snag on something midair. Because of this, they're mostly a novelty or outlawed in places like Florida and Illinois. Fun concept, bad execution. Finally, tungsten super penetrator rounds. These are what you use when you need to punch through advanced armor. Tungsten is almost twice as dense as lead, making it perfect for kinetic energy penetrators. These rounds use a subcaliber tungsten core wrapped in a sabot that falls away after leaving the barrel, allowing the core to hit the target at high velocity. If you're a tank commander, these are your best friends. If you're inside the tank, getting hit by one, not so much. Each of these rounds tells a story of warfare, innovation, and sometimes controversy. Some are banned, some are specialized, and all of them showcase the never-ending arms race between firepower and protection. Whether you're dealing with armored vehicles, aircraft, or just trying to hit your target more effectively, there's a round for that, just maybe not one you'd want to see coming your way. And that's a wrap. From bullets that explode to rounds that pierce armor like butter, these ammo types prove that firepower isn't just about the gun, it's about what you load into it. Which one shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss a deep dive into the wild world of weapons. See you in the next one.